What happens when your HOA burns down your prized possession just because you didn't join their club? For one state trooper, it started with a motorcycle and ended with a fiery showdown that turned national headlines. Hello, beautiful people. Before we dive into this story, if HOA Karens drive you crazy too, you're in the right place. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Just one click makes a huge difference. Now let's get into it. 2 weeks ago, I never would have imagined this moment. It was a crisp autumn morning, and Officer Sarah Carter had just finished her shift at the local police station. She'd been working long hours, but today felt different. She was finally getting some time off to enjoy her new passion project, customizing her beloved motorcycle. It wasn't just any bike. It was a sleek, flame-painted cruiser she'd spent months restoring, adding personal touches like chrome accents and hand-stitched leather seats. To Sarah, it represented freedom, independence, and her love for the open road. As she pulled into her driveway, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden hues across the neighborhood. Her neighbors waved from their porches, and kids played soccer in the street. Life seemed perfect until she stepped outside. The second Sarah opened her garage door, everything changed. There, in front of her house, stood a burning motorcycle. Flames roared violently, consuming the bike she'd poured so much time and effort into. Smoke billowed into the air, filling the street with acrid fumes. Firefighters were already on the scene, hoses spraying water to douse the flames, but it was too late. The bike was beyond saving. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. This couldn't be happening. Who would do such a thing? As firefighters worked to extinguish the blaze, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. HOA Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of Willow Creek's Homeowners Association rules. She stood there, arms crossed, smirking as if proud of what had happened. "What is going on here?" Sarah demanded, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. HOA Karen smirked. "You know exactly what's going on," she said coldly. "Your motorcycle violated our community guidelines. You refused to join the HOA, so we took matters into our own hands." Sarah blinked, momentarily stunned. "Are you serious? Burning my property isn't enforcement, it's vandalism." But before she could say more, another figure approached from behind the firefighters, a uniformed state trooper. He nodded toward Sarah, recognition flashing in his eyes. "Officer Carter," he said calmly, "I'll handle this." For a moment, silence fell over the scene. Then, something unexpected happened. The firefighter who had been dousing the flames stepped forward, pulling back his helmet to reveal a familiar face. Another state trooper. And then another. Suddenly, half a dozen uniformed officers emerged from the crowd, all smiling knowingly at Sarah. "Welcome home, Chief," they chorused, clapping her on the shoulder. In that instant, Sarah realized she wasn't alone. Not only did she have backup, but her identity as a state trooper had just become public knowledge, and it was about to turn the tide. When you're a state trooper, sometimes justice finds you faster than you expect. But for Sarah, it wasn't just about getting revenge, it was about proving that fairness and integrity matter more than petty rules. The moment Sarah realized she had backup from fellow state troopers, everything changed. Her initial shock gave way to determination. She knew this wasn't just about her motorcycle, it was about standing up to an organization that had crossed a dangerous line. Burning someone's property wasn't enforcement, it was criminal behavior. As firefighters continued to douse the flames, Sarah stepped forward, crossing her arms confidently. "Karen," she said calmly but firmly, "you've gone too far. Burning my motorcycle isn't just vandalism, it's illegal. And now that I'm outed as a state trooper, I can assure you, there will be consequences." Karen's smug expression faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained composure. "Rules are rules," she snapped, gesturing toward the charred remains of Sarah's bike. "You refused to comply with community guidelines. We were within our rights to take action." Sarah shook her head, her voice steady. "No, you weren't. You broke the law by destroying private property. And now, thanks to your actions, everyone knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of." Behind her, the firefighters began clearing the scene, their camaraderie with Sarah evident in their supportive glances. One of them handed her a walkie-talkie, already patched through to local authorities. Within minutes, police cars arrived, flashing lights illuminating the street as officers took statements and secured the area. Karen's smirk faded entirely as she realized the gravity of the situation. But Sarah wasn't done yet. She pulled out her badge, holding it up for all to see. "I'm Officer Sarah Carter, Willow Creek Police Department," she announced loudly, ensuring everyone present heard her. "And let me tell you something, this isn't just about me. It's about every homeowner who's ever been bullied by this HOA. From now on, things are going to change." Her words resonated deeply with the neighbors gathered around. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged knowing looks. For years, they'd watched HOA Karen wield her power arbitrarily, fining homeowners for trivial infractions like mismatched curtains or overgrown hedges. Now, seeing her face-to-face with a state trooper, they felt emboldened to speak out. One neighbor stepped forward, speaking up for the first time. "This is outrageous," he said, his voice firm. "How can anyone justify burning someone's property? Isn't that what we call arson?" Another chimed in, "And why didn't they follow proper channels? If they had a problem with her motorcycle, they should have filed a complaint, not torched it." The crowd murmured in agreement, their frustration palpable. Meanwhile, Sarah turned her attention back to HOA Karen, who now looked visibly shaken. For the first time, she seemed unsure of herself. The uniformed troopers surrounding Sarah added to the pressure, their presence serving as a stark reminder of the legal implications of her actions. As the situation unfolded, Sarah decided to take control of the narrative. She called a press conference later that evening, inviting reporters and residents to gather at her driveway. With the still smoldering remnants of her motorcycle in the background, she addressed the media and community directly. "This isn't just about one motorcycle," she began, her voice strong and clear. "It's about accountability, fairness, and respect for the law. When an organization entrusted with maintaining order resorts to violence, it loses its legitimacy. And today, I'm here to say enough is enough." The press conference went viral almost instantly. News outlets across the country picked up the story, highlighting the absurdity of the HOA's actions and the bravery of Sarah's response. Social media users flooded comment sections with stories of their own battles against unreasonable HOA rules, turning the incident into a national conversation about homeowners' rights. Meanwhile, the HOA board scrambled to respond. Several members resigned, citing personal reasons or moral objections to the crackdown. Others openly criticized HOA Karen, accusing her of overstepping her authority. By the end of the week, the board was fractured, with no clear leadership or direction. But Sarah wasn't satisfied with merely exposing the HOA's misconduct. She partnered with local advocacy groups specializing in property rights, drafting petitions to present to officials and state representatives. Within days, thousands of signatures poured in, demanding changes to outdated HOA guidelines. Still, Sarah knew the fight wasn't over yet. The HOA hadn't officially backed down, and there were still legal proceedings looming over her head. But for the first time, she felt hopeful. With national attention, growing support, and a strategic plan in place, she believed they could win this battle and inspire others to do the same. The press conference had been a turning point. Overnight, Willow Creek became the epicenter of a national debate about property rights, fairness, and the role of homeowners associations in regulating personal freedoms. The HOA, once seen as a benevolent overseer ensuring safety and aesthetic consistency, was now portrayed as an oppressive regime stifling individual freedom and robbing homeowners of their possessions. But HOA Karen wasn't ready to concede. She saw the growing movement as a direct threat to her authority, and she wasn't going down without a fight. Determined to squash the rebellion, she called another emergency HOA meeting, this time with a plan to escalate the situation. She proposed fining not only Sarah but also any homeowner caught harboring unapproved vehicles or displaying support for her cause. Her argument? Uniformity was non-negotiable, and allowing exceptions would set a dangerous precedent. The proposal sparked outrage among residents. During the meeting, several homeowners stood up to challenge HOA Karen, citing federal laws protecting private property rights and due process. One resident, a retired lawyer named Tom, pointed out that burning someone's motorcycle violated multiple statutes, including arson laws. Another neighbor shared a story about how her late husband, a World War II veteran, had always kept his prized Harley-Davidson in the driveway, a tradition she refused to abandon. Despite the backlash, HOA Karen refused to budge. She argued that the HOA's primary responsibility was maintaining property values, not promoting individual hobbies or justice. If we allow one person to break the rules, she warned, we'll have chaos. But Sarah wasn't backing down either. She knew that winning this battle required more than just local support. It needed national attention. So, she reached out to a prominent advocacy group called Homeowners United, whose mission was to protect property rights and challenge unreasonable HOA policies. The organization immediately took interest in Sarah's story and agreed to amplify her cause through their extensive network. Within days, photos of Sarah standing proudly beside the charred remains of her motorcycle began appearing on social media platforms, accompanied by captions praising her resilience and condemning the HOA's actions. "This is what happens when power goes unchecked," one influencer wrote beneath a photo of Sarah saluting the camera. "Why punish someone for loving their bike?" The post quickly gained traction, sparking conversations about the absurdity of HOA restrictions and the importance of supporting those who had served their communities. Neighbors who had previously remained silent started chiming in, sharing their own frustrations with the HOA's rigid rules. "Why can't we keep our motorcycles?" one resident commented. "It's harmless and meaningful." Another added, "If Sarah gets fined, I'll let my car stay parked in my driveway too. Enough is enough." Meanwhile, HOA Karen grew increasingly agitated. She called an emergency meeting of the HOA board, accusing Sarah of deliberately trying to undermine their authority. "We cannot allow this kind of behavior to continue," she declared. "If we let her get away with it, everyone will start thinking they can do whatever they want." The board agreed to send Sarah a formal warning, reminding her of the impending fine if she didn't comply. But instead of intimidating her, the letter only strengthened her resolve. Sarah realized that the HOA's resistance was rooted in fear, a fear of losing control. And she was determined to prove that change was possible. That weekend, Sarah hosted a small gathering in her driveway, inviting neighbors to show their support. She handed out miniature flags and encouraged others to display them proudly. By the end of the day, several residents had pledged to join her cause, vowing to challenge the HOA's outdated policies. As Sarah stood among her supporters, watching children wave tiny flags and neighbors exchange stories of their own connections to law enforcement, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about her motorcycle anymore. It was about creating a movement that celebrated unity, justice, and the power of community. But she also knew the road ahead would be difficult. The HOA wasn't going to back down easily, and the battle was far from over. Still, Sarah refused to let fear dictate her choices. If anything, the growing support only fueled her determination to see this through. The press conference had been a watershed moment for Sarah and her cause. Overnight, Willow Creek became the epicenter of a national debate about property rights, fairness, and the role of homeowners associations in regulating personal freedoms. The HOA, once seen as a benevolent overseer ensuring safety and aesthetic consistency, was now portrayed as an oppressive regime stifling individual freedom and robbing homeowners of their possessions. But HOA Karen wasn't ready to surrender just yet. In the days following the media blitz, she doubled down on her efforts to enforce the HOA's rules. Notices began appearing on doorsteps across the neighborhood, warning homeowners to stop harboring unapproved vehicles or face escalating fines. Some residents received letters threatening legal action if they didn't comply within 24 hours. Sarah saw these tactics for what they were, an act of desperation. The HOA was trying to intimidate people into submission, but she knew better than to let fear dictate her choices. Instead of backing down, she rallied her supporters, organizing a mass protest outside the HOA office. Dozens of families showed up, holding signs that read, "Freedom over fear," and "Respect our property." Motorcycles lined the parking lot, their riders revving engines in solidarity while children waved miniature flags. Local news crews covered the event extensively, capturing footage of kids laughing and parents chanting slogans demanding reform. One reporter interviewed a young boy who proudly held up a drawing of his dad's motorcycle. "This is what freedom looks like," the boy said, grinning. "And we're standing with Officer Carter." The protest drew national attention, with major outlets picking up the story. Politicians weighed in, praising Sarah's courage and calling for statewide reviews of HOA policies. A state representative even announced plans to introduce legislation protecting homeowners' rights to keep vehicles, regardless of HOA rules. For the first time, it felt like real change was possible, not just for Willow Creek but for communities everywhere. Meanwhile, the HOA board descended into chaos. Several members resigned, citing personal reasons or moral objections to the crackdown. Others, including HOA Karen, dug in deeper, clinging to their belief in absolute control. Sarah, meanwhile, continued building alliances. She partnered with legal experts specializing in property rights, drafting petitions to present to local officials and state representatives. Within weeks, thousands of signatures poured in, demanding changes to outdated HOA guidelines. But the most powerful moment came when Homeowners United arranged for Sarah to appear on a popular morning talk show. Sitting across from the host, Sarah recounted her journey, from the day her motorcycle was burned to the ongoing battle with the HOA. Her calm demeanor and heartfelt words resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom shared their own stories of fighting for their property rights. By the end of the segment, the hashtag #ProtectOurProperty was trending globally, sparking conversations about homeowners' rights, justice, and the role of HOAs in regulating personal freedoms. Suddenly, Sarah's struggle wasn't just about her motorcycle, it was part of a larger debate about fairness, integrity, and community. Still, Sarah knew the fight wasn't over yet. The HOA hadn't officially backed down, and there were still fines looming over her head. But for the first time, she felt hopeful. With national attention, growing support, and a strategic plan in place, she believed they could win this battle and inspire others to do the same. By winter, Willow Creek was unrecognizable from the cookie-cutter suburb it had once been. The monotony of manicured lawns and uniform driveways had given way to a vibrant display of individuality and freedom. Motorcycles lined driveways, their chrome accents gleaming in the sunlight. Customized vehicles, everything from classic cars to electric scooters, decorated front yards, each one unique yet connected by a shared spirit of creativity and resilience. It was as if the entire neighborhood had awakened, not just physically but spiritually. For Sarah, the transformation was deeply personal. Her driveway, once the center of controversy, had become a symbol of hope and resilience. She no longer feared fines or threats. Instead, she felt pride every time someone stopped to admire her handiwork or thank her for standing up for what mattered. What had started as a simple act of customization had grown into something far greater, a movement that celebrated justice, integrity, and community. The HOA, meanwhile, underwent its own metamorphosis. Faced with overwhelming public pressure and legal scrutiny, the board voted to dissolve itself, paving the way for a new governing body elected by residents. This time, candidates ran on platforms of transparency, inclusivity, and respect for individual freedoms. Sarah herself was approached to run, but she declined, preferring to focus on grassroots efforts rather than formal leadership roles. Still, she remained actively involved in shaping Willow Creek's future, working closely with the new board to draft guidelines that prioritized flexibility and collaboration over rigidity and control. One of the most significant changes came in the form of statewide legislation inspired by Sarah's fight. The proposed bill, championed by the state representative who had supported her cause, sought to protect homeowners' rights to keep vehicles, regardless of HOA rules. Dubbed the Property Rights Act, it passed unanimously, setting a precedent for communities across the country. Local news outlets hailed Sarah as a hero, and invitations poured in for her to speak at conferences, schools, and advocacy events. But despite the accolades, Sarah stayed grounded. She knew that real change wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about empowering others to make a difference in their own lives. To that end, she launched a non-profit organization called Homeowners United, dedicated to promoting property rights and challenging restrictive housing policies. Through workshops, online resources, and community outreach programs, the initiative helped countless families transform their neighborhoods into spaces where they could thrive. As spring returned to Willow Creek, Sarah hosted a neighborhood celebration to mark the one-year anniversary of her rebellion. Tables were set up along the street, laden with dishes made from homegrown ingredients and decorated with patriotic colors. Musicians performed lively songs on porches, while children ran through sprinklers and painted murals of motorcycles and flags on sidewalks. At the center of it all stood Sarah, raising a glass of lemonade in a toast. "To Willow Creek," she said, her voice warm but steady. "May we always remember that freedom isn't about perfection, it's about connection. And may we never forget what happens when we stand together." The crowd erupted in cheers, clinking glasses and applauding. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt alive, not with tension or conformity, but with genuine connection. Sarah glanced around at the smiling faces, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had started this fight alone, but she hadn't finished it that way. Together, they had turned a personal battle into a movement for change. That evening, as Sarah sat on her porch watching the sunset, she reflected on everything that had happened. Yes, the road had been long and difficult, but it had also been worth it. Willow Creek may never be perfect, but thanks to her courage and the community's unity, it was on the path to becoming a better, fairer place for everyone. And in that moment, surrounded by friends, family, and neighbors, Sarah knew she'd made the right choice. This wasn't just her victory, it belonged to all of them.